Kia ora, good morning and welcome to Ryan Bridge today. It is Monday the 9th of February. Great to have your company. Coming up on the show this hour, Brenton Tarrant, the mosque terrorist, is today launching an appeal against his sentence. Will he actually appear in court? And what grounds are there for an appeal over the deaths of 51 people? We'll ask those questions this morning. The water treatment plant disaster, raw sewage still pumping into the ocean around Wellington this morning. The question now, could it last for months? And who pays for the bill to fix the joint? Also this morning after 8:30, John Aitken, the Kiwi star of the reality dating juggernaut Married at First Sight. He's in the studio. What absolute freak shows will they pick this year? And can we really still call this a dating show? All that ahead, plus a cracker of a yarn from Matt Nippert this morning. We'll get to him in a second. First, here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant is back in court this week, seeking leave to appeal his convictions and vacate his guilty pleas. He was jailed for life in 2020 after admitting murdering 51 people and wounding another 40 at two Christchurch mosques in March 2019. The central issue for the court will be whether when he entered his guilty pleas, he was incapable of making rational decisions as a result of the conditions of his imprisonment. The hearing is set down for 5 days in the Court of Appeal in Wellington. Growing risk for the government's flagship regional development body. The Herald reports more than half of Crown Regional Holdings' $433 million loan book is now considered at risk of or currently in default. The organisation manages hundreds of millions of dollars in loan and equity funding provided to businesses, including through the Provincial Growth Fund and the Regional Infrastructure Fund. Chairman John Ray says that the investments remain concentrated in sectors and regions where traditional financing is limited. He says the economic environment has remained challenging. The early childhood education sector is facing a growing workforce challenge. New data shows nearly 34,000 teaching staff were employed last year, but just over two-thirds were qualified. Almost 10,000 staff had no formal qualifications, nearly double the number in 2011. A disagreement between the Department of Conservation and its minister over who should have to pay to visit conservation land. A regulatory impact statement shows DOC wanted everyone to pay new levies for accessing certain sites, including New Zealand citizens. Conservation Minister Tama Potaka wanted the charge to only impact international visitors. DOC's option to charge all visitors was expected to bring in $254.8 million in revenue over 5 years, whereas Potaka's would bring in $236.6 million. A major blaze at a Taupo High School has been brought under control. Fire and emergency crews from 8 areas were sent to the fire at Taupo Nuiatia College just after 2 yesterday afternoon as thick black smoke spread across the town. The school will be closed today, and the Ministry of Education says it will probably be closed tomorrow too, while the site is assessed and made safe. Residents in Wellington's south coast will have to brace for more foul odour from Moore Point's treatment plant as wastewater continues to flow into the sea. Work continued over the weekend to clean out biological material from the plant. Wellington Water says that the priority is to make it as safe as possible to determine what needs to be repaired or replaced.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
New Zealand's men have beaten Afghanistan by 5 wickets, chasing 183 with 13 balls to spare to open their T20 World Cup cricket campaign in Chennai. New Zealand's women's have claimed a third win from 4 events on the World 7 Series, beating Australia in the final at Perth. Skier Lindsay Vonn's quest to compete at the Olympics, despite recently rupturing the anterior cruciate ligament in her left knee, has seen the 41-year-old airlifted from the course in the women's downhill.
Just gone 7 after 7. Next week, the RBNZ will start looking at our interest rates again. This is under the leadership of a new Reserve Bank governor. Of course, it's a monetary policy committee that looks at this, but they're likely to hold the OCR next week here in New Zealand. Last week in Australia, they started to hike. It's like they're on a different hemisphere to us across the Tasman. There was a good podcast talking about this, some of this at least, Of Interest it's called, with the Westpac economist. The RBA's rate is now 3.85%, ours is 2.25%, and it's been nearly 15 years since there's been such a gap between the two of them. Usually we cycle together quite closely most of the time, but we've drifted apart to the point where one's so far over the hill that we actually can't see each other anymore. This is all, of course, by design. We were way more aggressive in hiking and lowering our rates. We engineered a recession to crash inflation here. They went a lot softer to take into account employment. They have a dual mandate. The coalition, of course, got rid of ours. The Aussies are now upping rates again because their inflation is taking off again. Ours has a mild case of fever, but nothing like the almost 4% that they're facing there. The question anyone thinking about this stuff with a mortgage is asking themselves is this: would you swallow a bit of inflation to have an economy that's actually firing? In other words, in future, would you rather this was handled the Aussie way or the Kiwi way? And crucially, can our economy kick back into gear without the usual rocket fuel, runaway house prices?
Herald Now weather.
To Maria, good morning. A little chilly again today in the South Island. Don't worry, it does get very hot later in the week. As for today though, not much going on thanks to a ridge of high pressure with mostly fine skies for the lower south. Just some morning and maybe evening cloud for some with east to southeast winds. Could be a few showers around Banks Peninsula and maybe Timaru. Otherwise, the rest of the South Island will remain dry with developing easterlies for Christchurch. It's a beautiful fine day for the lower North Island. Wellington, it'll be one of those days. Blue skies and just an afternoon sea breeze. Now the days are all good here once any cloud clears, but there will be a couple of afternoon and evening showers returning to Bay of Plenty and the Central Plateau. And cloud clears early for the upper north and the day looks good. Unfortunately, a few showers will spread through from late afternoon or early evening for Hamilton and Auckland.
It is 10 minutes after 7 now. A government-owned lender set up to drive regional growth now has more than half of its loan book at risk of default. Now, the value of this loan book, a staggering $433 million, almost $500 million. It's our money. Crown Regional Holdings was born out of the Provincial Growth Fund era, backing projects that private banks basically wouldn't touch. But new figures show a growing number of those loans, including many under the Regional Infrastructure Fund, and potentially are in trouble. So let's go now to the man who's been working on this story, Matt Nippert, business investigations reporter with the Herald. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So what's actually going on here? What's new in this information you're giving us this morning?
Well, each year, government agencies need to put out annual reports. It's quite interesting that sort of quasi-financial outfits have to give an accounting of sort of the risks that they face. While the economy generally has been doing it tough over the last couple of years, it's fair to say an entity that was making loans to entities, to businesses that wouldn't be able to get money from the bank are at higher risk. And we've sort of seeing things even more painful there than we would say when the mainstream banks put out results. So we've seen a steady increase in impairments, and it's really a sign about how bad things have got.
Right, and so when you say impairments, what are we talking about?
Oh, loan write-offs. I mean, it's where if you lend someone money and expect to get it back, each year you account for it and say, yeah, I'm going to get all that money back. When you realise that the lender won't be able to meet those terms, you need to make a provision. And that's effectively what I've been particularly interested in tracking. But more interesting with the Crown Regional Holdings, which is this sort of omnibus entity that holds all sorts of funds, mainly given out by Shane Jones when he's been in government at various times, the Provincial Growth Fund and the Regional Infrastructure Fund. We've seen the reporting of the loans, whether they're actually in default, i.e. they haven't made payments, or they're at risk of default, has increased pretty regularly, and now it's over half the loan book is flagged as at risk.
How unusual is that for a lender?
Well, I mean, if it was a bank, there'd be huge questions. I mean,
you'd be in real trouble, wouldn't you?
Well, if you're writing off 5% of your loan book each year, you'd be very quickly turned out by your shareholders. However, this wasn't exclusively a business proposition. This was supposed to be investing in the regions which couldn't get funding in other ways. So you can understand why they were making it. But I guess we're now seeing why they couldn't get funding from banks.
100%. So how much of this could they turn around and say, well, this is the general economic malaise and the situation that the economy is in, as opposed to anything specifically wrong with these entities?
Oh, look, I've talked to Shane Jones a number of times about the scheme, and he's been not defensive at all. He's saying it's working as advertised. It's money going to the regions, but...
As in, who cares whether it's working or not? And whether,
well, I'm sure the finance minister does. But a lot of these loans had very long repayment horizons. I think there's some work done by my colleagues at Business Desk that looked at the original Provincial Growth Fund, which is a couple of $100 million, and actually, almost 10 years on, less than 10% has been repaid. Part of that was due to they were given quite generous repayment terms and weren't expected to repay until 10 years down the track. So these are very unusual loans from a commercial sense.
Matt, what types of businesses are we talking about here?
Well, there's a whole range, obviously mainly in the regions. Big pots of money have been thrown at the Bay of Plenty. I've been looking particularly at a mussel farm in Apotiki that has just made progressively larger losses each year with the additional capital it's got from government. That was also bundled alongside that. They also spent over $100 million upgrading the harbour, building a new wharf, supposed to help the mussel farm, but the mussel farm just seems to be in a bigger and bigger hole. There's also another big chunk of spending in Northland for some reason, which is also Shane Jones' electorate.
Very curious, that, isn't it? Matt, appreciate your reporting this morning. Thanks for updating us.
No worries, Ryan.
That's Matt Nippert, who is Business Investigations reporter with the Herald. And I do want to point out that we did invite the Minister, Shane Jones, on the program this morning, but no answer. What was the story? On a flight. There we go. Flying over regional New Zealand, which apparently owes us a lot of money. 7:15. Do New Zealand judges hold too much power for too long? In an op-ed over the weekend, Lady Deborah Chambers, KC, says that judicial authority, including the role of the Chief Justice, should come with a use-by date, arguing fixed terms would encourage reform and prevent stagnation. So what exactly does that mean? Lady Deborah Chambers, KC, joins us this morning. Lady Deborah, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Lovely to see you. Tell me, what are you writing about here? What's the point you're getting at?
Well, the main point I'm getting at is in New Zealand, we appoint our senior judges, the administrative roles, permanently. There's a few exceptions, but in general, they get appointed and they stay there till they retire or resign. And I think that's out of step with the modern world. And I don't think it's good for our court system because they actually hold a great deal of power. And I think renewal and a much faster turnover in accordance with the private sector and indeed the government sector in terms of running big state departments would be better.
How are they overstepping the mark, do you think?
Well, I don't think anyone's overstepping the mark, but I think the problem with chief judges staying in place for 10, 15, 20 years is that, inevitably, even if they're wonderful at their role and so on, it becomes a bit stagnant. And also, I do think our justice system needs some pretty significant reform, and it would be better to have people coming in for 5 to 7 years, making changes, and then giving it to someone else with other proficiencies and other ideas. So it's like a CEO of a board in a company. Those are moving internationally towards more like 5 to 7 year terms for all of these reasons. And the same good reasons apply, in my view, to the governance roles in the judiciary.
Is what you're talking about similar to the complaints, or would they deal with some of the complaints that we get from the likes of Shane Jones about the judiciary, when it comes to marine and coastal areas bills, interpretation of legislation, that type of thing?
Yeah, well, I think that that's not quite the same because this is, I'm not really talking about judicial decision making. I'm talking about the administrative side of running those courts, which is pretty important from a consumer's viewpoint. And we know there's a lot of consumers out there who are not happy with it. But if you have really long-term appointments in those roles, then their worldview can capture the decision-making process. So I think that is it overlaps to that extent,
but not perhaps the core issue. Thank you for speaking to us this morning. For those who want to have a read, Lady Deborah's opinion pieces at nzherald.co.nz. I must say, I don't know what you're doing on Waiheke today, but I'd much rather be there. Thank you for being with me this morning.
Lovely to talk. Thanks, Ryan.
Lady Deborah Chambers. Time is 18 minutes after 7. Now, if you've got feedback for us this morning, flick us an email, ryan@nzherald.co.nz. That's ryan@nzherald.co.nz. We would love to share your feedback with the rest of our audience this morning, as we always do. Right, let's go to the UK. The heat continues to build on Starmer. This is the UK Prime Minister. His Chief of Staff is now gone, resigned. This is Morgan McSweeney, all over Epstein, all over the decision to appoint Lord Mandelson, as the US ambassador for the UK. So McSweeney is the fall guy. He's taken the hit, resigning, comes after police launch now a criminal investigation into claims that Mandelson passed sensitive information to Epstein. So just repeating that, Starmer's lost his Chief of Staff, and you've also got Rayner. So Rayner was Starmer's number 2. And remember, she was demoted down. She's in the backbench now, but she's sort of agitating. And she's saying, I told Starmer not to appoint Mandelson. You've also got Lammy, who is Starmer's current deputy and former foreign minister. He's also saying, I told him not to appoint Mandelson. There were better people for the job. And so it was Starmer's call. Starmer's got a fall guy for now, but it won't be long, you'd think, until they come knocking at his door too, looking for a resignation. Right. 20 after 7 now. The Mile Point wastewater treatment plant in Wellington is still discharging screened wastewater 5 days after an equipment failure led to raw sewage entering the sea. Millions of litres of sewage have been passing through a shortfall pipe close to shore, but that has since been diverted through to the long fall pipe we spoke about last week that is much deeper out. While solid items like wipes and sanitary products are now being removed, the wastewater is not yet receiving full biological or ultraviolet treatment. In other words, there's still yuck stuff in there. Pat Doherty is the CEO of Wellington Water, returning to us this morning. Pat, good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
So, where are we at? How much at the moment is going out into the ocean?
I think we're discharging about 1,300, 1,400 litres a second at the moment. So it's still averaging about that, I think, 70 million cubic metres a day, which is our typical dry weather discharge.
Right, so basically, all the waste from Wellington, Flushing, and Wellington residents Flushing today is still going into the ocean, largely untreated.
Green, but untreated, yes.
Okay. And when do we expect that will stop?
It'll be months, Ryan. Today will be the first day that we can safely get electrical experts into the plant to start assessing the damage. It still looks like about 80% of our plant was submerged or partially submerged. And yeah, it's going to be months before we get that fixed.
Now, just so we're clear, it's not the 5 metres offshore that we're talking about, this pipe. It's 1.7 odd Ks out to sea. Does that mean that it's safe, for months? Will it mean no swimming on the south coast?
So things will be better. The water quality around in the immediate vicinity of Lyell Bay, etc., will improve, but I don't think it's going to be enough to enable swimming. And the crunch is that bypass that we're running the screened effluent through has limited capacity. The main way to bypass the plant is still that short outfall, which is only about 5 metres long. So if we get heavy rain, we're going to have to divert some of the flow back to that short outfall because the screening and bypass to the long outfall won't cope with it.
Wow. I'm from here, Pat. This is such an iconic piece of Wellington. We're just looking at the pictures of it. Obviously, you can't see the detail, thankfully, at the moment. But to say for months you won't be able to swim there is, the place where planes come and land and take off and they look at that beautiful surfing beach, no-go for surfers for months.
I know it's completely unacceptable. We acknowledge that, but there's, as I said the last time we talked, public health is the priority, and it's public health and the regional council, once they've seen all the monitoring data, and also take into account the bigger picture and what sort of treatment we're doing, we'll decide. But I'd be very surprised if they're going to let us ease any of those access to the water restrictions until the plant is back up and running.
Okay, and Pat, have you spoken to central government about this yet? We asked Nicola Willis on Thursday after you and I spoke. We asked Nicola Willis. She said, look, I expect them to sort of deal with it cost-wise. Any idea yet of potential costs, where money might come from?
No idea about costs. We still don't know the scale of the damage. Today will be the first chance we have to start seeing what can be salvaged and what can't. Look, I've been talking with DIA, but I know the Mayor of Wellington is meeting with the Minister of Local Government and with the Prime Minister. So, those conversations are having a pay grade above me.
Would there be any point, or would you encourage people to use the loo less if they can?
No, I don't. There really isn't much point. If it starts to rain, it won't matter if everybody in Wellington stops showering and going to the toilet. We'd still have to discharge some of the water through the short outfall. So we're pretty good on dry days, but we're going to struggle as soon as it rains.
Should people be fishing around here, out at the Cook Strait? I mean, how far does it affect?
The thing that our water monitoring has done is shown that the area where we've got the no fishing, no shellfishing, no swimming, and the rahui is pretty accurate. So if you stay outside those lines, then you can fish.
Okay. Just finally, any clearer on the cause? We spoke, there was some remedial work being done. Any clearer on exactly what went wrong?
No, we've managed to get a camera down the first 300 metres of the pipe. My theory was that perhaps there was some demolition or construction debris had found its way into the pipe and was obstructing it, but we didn't find that. And we've also had divers down on the diffuser, because the next most likely cause is damage to the diffuser, storm damage, trailing anchor chain, something like that. But that isn't the case either. So we're now starting. So there's still the intermediate, the middle of the pipe, about 1.5 km of it, that will require a sonar inspection. But we now that we've ruled out the two most likely parts of that pipe, we're thinking that it's maybe something to do with the dynamics of the way that the discharge enters the outfall pipe. That normally the treatment plant dominates with the bypass kicking something in. We reversed that during the storm, and most of the flows were equally split. And for some reason that didn't work. We're wondering whether we're getting air in the pipe that's reducing its efficiency. So we're getting some of the best hydraulic modelers in New Zealand to look at that problem for us at the moment.
Okay. All right, Pat, I appreciate you coming on the program, as I did on Thursday. Thanks for being with me again for the update. Pat Doherty, CEO of Wellington Water, 27 after 7. Just repeating that news from Pat this morning, that there is likely to be a no-go swimming on the south coast of Wellington for months. I know, it's quite shocking news, isn't it? Right, let's go to Japan first. I want to update you on Takeichi, my favourite politician at the moment. So she is, I call her the Judith Collins of Japanese politics, because she was in the party for years, tried to be a leader for a couple of times, didn't really work out. She's now got the job. She's conservative in a conservative party. She is a China hawk. Here she is. She plays the drums. You might be familiar with her. She plays the drums. Loves a bit of heavy metal. So kind of unusual character, but also a very smart politician. Comes in there she is, comes in after 3 months, goes, do you know what? I'm calling a snap election. It's the middle of winter in Japan. You just don't do that. It's snowing. You do not call a snap election. She's like, nah, to hell with that. To hell with convention. I'm calling it. I'm doing it. I need the numbers. Japan's in a situation. The people respond. The gamble has paid off. And this morning, she is being rewarded handsomely at the polls. 2/3 majority in the lower house right now, giving an overwhelming control of that chamber and the ability to overrule the smaller upper house to push through her agenda. Her party for the last 10 years has had to rely on coalitions, much like our current National Party does, right? Nah, after a decade of that, she has just secured the first majority, at least on current numbers, first majority for her party. So she's doing very, very well indeed. They're calling it a landslide, and it certainly looks like one from here. 28 minutes after 7 now. The man behind New Zealand's deadliest mass shooting is back in court today. At least his appeal will be heard in court from today, launching it against his sentence. Brenton Tarrant killed 51 people and injured dozens of others when he attacked 2 Christchurch mosques in 2019. He's serving a life sentence without parole. Anna Leask is senior crime and justice journalist with the Herald and joins us from Christchurch this morning. Anna, good morning.
Good morning.
So what happens from today? What's going on?
So today, the Court of Appeal, well, across this week, the Court of Appeal is going to hear submissions and evidence from the terrorist and his lawyers about why he should have an appeal. So generally, after you've been sentenced, you have 20 days to file an appeal. He's well out of time. And so the hearing this week is basically to ascertain whether he's got an arguable case, whether he should have that appeal out of time. He's saying he, pleaded guilty under duress, that he was in inhumane conditions and being tortured in prison, and he wants to vacate that guilty plea and take his case to trial, effectively.
Right. Why do we only allow people 20 days to launch an appeal or to say whether they will appeal?
Look, it's just part of the justice system. Everything's got a deadline, and that it's 20 working days from the day you're sentenced. It just, keeps things moving and makes sure that things don't drag out, for the system, for victims. A lot of the time, appeal cases do take more than 20 days to get off the ground or to get together. But after that 20 days, you have to have special permission from the Court of Appeal to even file an appeal. So the hearing this week is basically to see whether the terrorist has an arguable case and should leave be granted for him to make that application to go further.
Anna, you've obviously been covering this case for a very long time now. What do you think will happen here?
Look, it's his guilty plea, was pretty convincing at the time. It was the day after we went into lockdown. He was in court in Christchurch, and he unexpectedly pleaded guilty to 51 murders and 40 counts of attempted murder in that act of terrorism. So it will be interesting to hear the evidence today that he says proves he wasn't being treated well, and that he basically pleaded guilty under duress from police. We haven't heard that evidence yet. We don't know the bulk of it. So that's what will be really interesting to hear this week. Obviously very hard for those impacted, those who lost loved ones and were injured in the mosque attack, to hear this. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what the court makes of it.
Absolutely. Anna, appreciate that update from you this morning, and we'll look forward to your reporting, of course, at nzherald.co.nz today. That's our crime and justice reporter, Anna Leask, in Christchurch this morning. Time is 29 minutes away from 8. We'll get to business with Garth shortly. We'll get to markets with Zoe, all thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. First, here is Neva with the morning's headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant is back in court this week, seeking leave to appeal his convictions and vacate his guilty pleas. He was jailed for life in 2020 after admitting murdering 51 people and wounding another 40 at 2 Christchurch mosques in March 2019. The central issue for the court will be whether, when he entered his guilty pleas, he was incapable of making rational decisions as a result of the conditions of his imprisonment. The hearing is set down for 5 days in the Court of Appeal in Wellington. Growing risk for the government's flagship regional development body. The Herald reports more than half of Crown Regional Holdings' $433 million loan book is now considered at risk of or currently in default. The organisation manages hundreds of millions of dollars in loan and equity funding provided to businesses, including through the Provincial Growth Fund and the Regional Infrastructure Fund. Chairman John Ray says that the investments remain concentrated in sectors and regions where traditional financing is limited. He says the economic environment has remained challenging. The early childhood education sector is facing a growing workforce challenge. New data shows nearly 34,000 teaching staff were employed last year, but just over two-thirds were qualified. Almost 10,000 staff had no formal qualifications, nearly double the number in 2011. A disagreement between the Department of Conservation and its minister over who should have to pay to visit conservation land. A regulatory impact statement shows DOC wanted everyone to pay new levies for accessing certain sites, including New Zealand citizens. Conservation Minister Tama Potaka wanted the charge to only impact international visitors. DOC's option to charge all visitors was expected to bring in $254.8 million in revenue over 5 years, whereas Potaka's would bring in $236.6 million. A major blaze at a Taupo high school has been brought under control. Fire and emergency crews from 8 areas were sent to the fire at Taupo Nuiatia College just after 2 yesterday afternoon as thick black smoke spread across the town. The school will be closed today, and the Ministry of Education says it will probably be closed tomorrow too, while the site is assessed and made safe. Residents in Wellington's south coast will have to brace for more foul odour from Moore Point's treatment plant as wastewater continues to flow into the sea. Work continued over the weekend to clean out biological material from the plant. Wellington Water says that the priority is to make it as safe as possible to determine what needs to be repaired or replaced.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
New Zealand's men have beaten Afghanistan by 5 wickets, chasing 183 with 13 balls to spare to open their T20 World Cup cricket campaign in Chennai. New Zealand's women's have claimed a 3rd win from 4 events on the World 7 Series, beating Australia in the final at Perth. Skier Lindsay Vonn's quest to compete at the Olympics, despite recently rupturing the anterior cruciate ligament in her left knee, has seen the 41-year-old airlifted from the course in the women's downhill.
Herald Now Weather.
Te Maria, good morning. A little chilly again today in the South Island. Don't worry, it does get very hot later in the week. As for today, though, not much going on thanks to a ridge of high pressure with mostly fine skies for the lower south. Just some morning and maybe evening cloud for some with east to southeast winds. Could be a few showers around Banks Peninsula and maybe Timaru. Otherwise, the rest of the South Island will remain dry with developing easterlies for Christchurch. It's a beautiful fine day for the lower North Island. Wellington, it'll be one of those days. Blue skies and just an afternoon sea breeze. Now the days are all good here once any cloud clears, but there will be a couple of afternoon and evening showers returning to Bay of Plenty and the Central Plateau. And cloud clears early for the upper north and the day looks good. Unfortunately, a few showers will spread through from late afternoon or early evening for Hamilton and Auckland.
Welcome back. Great to have your company this morning. 24 minutes away from 8. Time to talk business thanks to our partners Forsyth Barr. We've just been talking about Japan's first female Prime Minister who's won a big majority in a snap election. What does it mean though for the economy, the world economy? What does it mean for us? Garth Bray, host of Herald Now Business, is with us. Garth, good morning.
Try and sum it all up. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, look, Sane Takeichi, the Takeichi trade as they've called it since she was put in there in October last year, has done wonders for the Nikkei, and certainly it was cracking sort of new highs ahead of the result just over the weekend there, and you've sort of seen that probably will back up again. I think 291 seats that they've picked up at least, it seems, and so that gives them a majority, the LDP, and with their coalition, the Japan Innovation Party, they're likely to have a sort of a super majority, which means they can look at some pretty substantial things. doing geopolitics, possibly even reversing the long-standing rule that Japan has about sort of not getting involved in other conflicts. It's sort of purely for defence. But obviously, so very hawkish on China and on trade there. And I guess from our point of view, I mean, the huge relationship, they're a number 4 trading partner behind China, the US and Australia. And basically we feed them and they keep us moving, whether it's, cars and automotive related stuff and so on. So always keen interest in what the yen is doing there, I suppose, and it's certainly looking a lot stronger, weaker against our dollar at the moment, just because bond markets are thinking, crikey, some of the moves that they are making look like they are going to be quite inflationary. Some of the spending that they are doing is pretty extreme.
Tax cuts
on,
all
basically they're going to get rid of consumption tax, GST on food. So maybe, we'll just have to see how that lands, whether the offset there and prices that they pay when they're picking stuff up from the shops is offset by a currency loss, I suppose.
So big on, should be getting closer to America. They'll be spending lots on defence that they otherwise wouldn't have spent.
Yeah, huge.
Now, critical minerals, hot topic. We spoke about this a lot last week. We got some news about one seeking government support.
Yeah, so this is Tyco Critical Minerals, not on the NZX yet. They took quite a few journalists around their, proposed estate earlier last month, including from Business Desk and the Herald. Nice piece in the Herald this morning from Kate McNamara, spelling all of this out. And interestingly, given your chat earlier with Matt, picking up the fact that they are seeking debt from the government, basically. They're going to try and raise about 40 million out of the exchange, out of the stock market and equity, and they're going to try and raise a similar amount of debt, and a chunk of that they would like in the form of a regional infrastructure fund loan, which is, as the article points out, it's not exactly on the face of it an obvious candidate for it because of the structure of that. When you're investing in an individual business, it's got to generate benefits or services for other businesses or the community, and it's about energy security, water security, food security, transport or growth of a Māori-owned business. So it's not quite under the criteria, but you wonder if it might just get a bend. And then I guess that plays out down the track with will it pay off or not. But I mean, interesting numbers. They're saying the minerals that they're going to extract from that area, typically you'd see about 2 to 3% concentration in the kind of soils you have around there. And they've got some reasonably reliable reporting they've put up that says 19 to 12% heavy minerals concentration. So loads of the stuff there, plenty of scope for extraction and processing of it around Greymouth. And of course the processing of the critical minerals is probably just as important because that's where China's got a big chunk of it.
Get it out. The thing is, if these minerals are so critical, why is the government need to pay any money to get them out? Where is the private money? What's going on here?
Good question. I suppose it's always risky. Will it pay off? A lot of these things depend on, Chile at the moment is having a real hard time just processing its copper. This is a good piece at Delipa. Fonseca's got a timely piece on the critical minerals extravaganza in Business Desk today. They've had a 1 in 1,000 year drought, a mega drought. And so because they spend so much time processing copper, they lose access to easy water and so on. Then it's a good argument for putting your eggs in lots of different baskets, but it is a risky proposition always, taking stuff out of the ground. A risky
basket. Now let's go to reporting season, more this week.
Yeah, look, this is every 6 months or so we get a bit of a pulse check. About 34 companies are likely to report sort of half-year results or full years in some cases. Scalar-up, big exporter, leads off the charge of that later this week. And then next week and over the next couple of weeks, we'll start to see results from the likes of, Fletcher reporting, post the announcement of its sale of its construction company. EBOS, big health and animal care company, which lost a big contract to Chemist Warehouse last year and took an absolute nosedive. Punishing trade, I think a lot of Aussie investors selling out of that stock and not liking a change of management, so they get a chance to basically stump up. And I guess our friends at Forsyth Bar, who you'll hear more from shortly, I'm sure, saying, look, the market will be unforgiving to unsubstantiated second half improvement commentary. In other words, show us the money, don't just talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
Auditors, though, still winning. Nice piece in BD today. Audit fees
won't buy your
shot
fluff.
Up 21% year on year.
Bit of inflation.
Never mind your AI. Here's your fee.
Garth, thank you. Garth Bray, host of that's Herald Now business host Garth Bray, I should say. We talk business every day with our partners, Forsyth Bar. Now to the South Island, where the former Dunedin Mayor has thrown his hat in the ring for the City Council by-election. Claire Schubert, News Talk ZB South Island News Director, joins me. Claire, good morning.
Good morning.
So he's back. Well, he wants to be back.
He wants to be back, that's right. As is Aaron Hawkins, who sat on Dunedin City Council from 2013 to 2022, including 3 years as Dunedin's mayor before he lost that role to Jules Raddick. Now, obviously, Jules Raddick died in very sudden and unexpected circumstances last month. He had a heart attack and is no longer in his council seat. That, of course, has sparked a by-election. Now, the by-election, nominations are open. One of them to step forward is Aaron Hawkins. He says, look, he didn't expect to be in this position, but due to the sudden sort of departure of Jules Raddick, he feels it's his time. He thinks that it's time for a manager or a leader to step in who is ready to lead from day one. What's interesting about Aaron Hawkins' bid this time, though, is he's removed himself from the Green ticket and he'll be returning to his roots, as he describes it, and running as an independent. Now, there's already at least half a dozen others in the running as well, so it certainly will be one to watch.
Yes, it certainly will be. You've got to wonder, I mean, they kind of got rid of him once. Do they really want him back again? Anyway, he's going to try. Christchurch's new Metro Sports Centre has been having some teething issues. They reckon they've now fixed these, Claire.
Well, yeah, they reckon they're fixing these. And this is an interesting one because word on the street is, has it really been that bad, these incidents that have come forward that we have reported from our newsroom? Or is it a case of us all looking for fault in what has been an issue-plagued build for Parakiore? This is the facility that was well over budget, well over time by millions and millions of dollars in many years. It did open to the public in December. And in the first month of being open, we revealed last week that there were more than 160 incidents at the facility, which required incident reports. Those are the likes of, first aid matters, etc. 33 of those incidents related to the hydro slides. Now, those incidents have sparked a review by council and lots of changes, including increasing the water flow in the rather narrow slides to assist people to continue down the slides. It paints quite a good picture that Mayor Phil Major describes himself running into some issues in the slides and getting stuck while he was there with some school kids trialling the facility. So he's certainly supporting the review that is happening there and the changes that have been made. There's also some new signs to go up in the car park after 2,000 people got parking tickets. Despite the first 2 hours being free, you still have to put your rego into a parking meter inside the building, and that's caused some confusion. The good news is the majority of those tickets have been waived.
Oh, that is good news. And please let us know if you find any footage of Phil Major stuck in the hydro slide. Claire Sherwood, News Talk ZB South Island News Director, with us this morning. It is 7:45. Right to America now, and the TV host Savannah Guthrie, whose mother has been taken by kidnappers. So she has the family done a new video pleading for her safe return. Excuse me. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie went missing from her home in Arizona a week ago. Savannah Guthrie and her siblings issued a public plea while neighbours have expressed shock over the case.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Now, police say that blood found at her home matches Nancy Guthrie and that her doorbell camera and pacemaker were disabled at the night that she vanished. Time now for a quick break. Next, Zoe Wallace with Monday Markets, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
Welcome back. It is 12 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Let's go to some breaking news. 2 young people have been charged following a massive fire at a Taupō college. Emergency services were called to the blaze about 2:15 yesterday afternoon. They found classrooms like this engulfed in flames. One block was completely destroyed along with everything inside. Police confirming this morning that 2 youths have been charged with arson. They'll due to appear in Taupō Youth Court sometime this week. Time for a look now at the markets, thanks to our partners Forsyth Barr. Zoe Wallace, investment strategist at Forsyth Barr, joins us live. Zoe, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So AI are rocking the markets again. Tell us what the latest is.
Yeah, never a dull day in markets. It was a pretty volatile one last week. That was really driven by Anthropic releasing their new co-work platform, which essentially drove concerns that actually AI might be about to cut the lunch of multiple software companies in the US in particular. And that did spark a sell-off in terms of software stocks, particularly last week. It got pretty nasty through the middle of last week, although we did see a bit of a rebound towards the end of last week. It's probably just worth noting, though, that this isn't unusual. We have seen these types of volatile stock market reactions over concerns about what AI means for the future. And, there's a huge amount of potential going on here. It's really hard to predict exactly how this is all going to roll out over the next few years. But, not that long ago, we were talking about the threat of, search being really eaten into by AI. And now that hasn't eventuated as yet. And I think the market sell-off was quite indiscriminate last week. So we did see a bit of a rebound on Friday. But we're still in the midst of reporting season as well internationally, so we'll see how that goes. Generally, it's been pretty positive so far.
Yeah, it has, Zoe. Who are you looking for this week, both not just in the US internationally, but also locally?
Yeah, so in the US, as I say, things continue. It's probably less of the big tech names this week, more some of the industrials and the sort of staples like McDonald's and Caterpillar out this week. So we're keeping a close eye on them. But as you mentioned, we do start to kick off local Australasian reporting season this week. So things really do kick into gear in Australia this week. We've got Car Group, Cochlear, CBA and ASX, the big financial companies, in the spotlight later this week, but also the very start of the local New Zealand reporting season. So we have Scalar out on Thursday and also Southport on Friday before things really kick into gear as we head into next week.
Also, we've got inflation and jobs data coming out of the US this week.
That's correct. Both of those delayed by the recent US government shutdown. So it's unusual to have both in the same week. Makes for a pretty busy one. Look, in terms of markets, we did see some private sector payrolls data out last week, which implied that things were softening in general in terms of the US labour market. So market's looking for a gain of payrolls of about 40,000. Now, that's not too bad in the scheme of things. Most estimates that suggest that to kind of keep the unemployment rate steady in the US, you need somewhere between 0 to 50,000. And that's because migration's running so much cooler in the US at the moment with the changes around the border controls, etc. CPI data is another one, big focus given we're heading into another Fed decision in March. Look, at the moment, the market's actually expecting inflation to have come in relatively well behaved, showing a headline decline in the inflation rate to 2.4%. And core inflation still running at about 2.5%. But the Fed would be pretty happy with those results, I think.
Yeah, it certainly would. Meanwhile, we've got PMI. This is the manufacturing number coming out of New Zealand this week, and it's in positive territory. Thank goodness. We were in the doldrums for so long. What are you expecting it to do this week?
Yeah, so we saw a big jump actually in that PMI read last in December. We're up to 56, about 56, and that does indicate that the sector is in expansion. What we've seen in things like the recent ANZ Business Confidence Survey is actually that the manufacturing sector is still feeling really positive. Export intentions are picking up, their own activity outlooks increased as well. So expect to see another solid PMI number. I'm not sure whether we'll see an increase from there, but it's certainly at around those levels when we get that data later this week.
All right, Zoe, appreciate the update as always. Zoe Wallace, investment strategist at Forsyth Bar. Time is 8 minutes away from 8. If you're just joining us, a couple of things to update you on this morning. 2 youths have been charged over that big fire. Actually, Taupō's biggest high school closed because of a massive fire there yesterday, and 2 young people charged. Also, if you're in Wellington, don't swim in the south coast. Boss of Wellington Water this morning told us probably going to be months before you can go surfing at Wellington's most iconic surf beach again. Next, the boys are in to talk sport, including the Black Caps winning start to the T20 World Cup last night and the Super Bowl coming today. Then, after the 8 o'clock news with Neva, what damage has the situation in Wellington done to sea life? All that and more after the break.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We've done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back. It is 5 to 8. Boys are back with sport this morning. Herald sports journalists Cam McMillan and Nathan Lim. Welcome back.
Morning.
This is where we judge whether your predictions on Thursday ring true. It's Monday morning. It's the hour of reckoning. Okay, now I think you might have been right, Nathan.
I'm quite happy to say I was right. And that Afghanistan was going to be a tough pool game for the Black Caps, and it proved that in terms of Afghanistan setting what was going to be New Zealand's highest chase in T20 World Cup, scoring 182 first up with the bat, and it proved to be difficult for the New Zealanders because the Black Caps lost 2 batters and 2 balls. Finn Allen and Rachman Ravindra both getting bowled, and Glenn Phillips surviving the hat-trick ball very early on in the innings. But from there, Tim Seifert and Glenn Phillips put on a stand that really set the innings up. Seifert started with 65 off the bat, Phillips 42. And then later in the innings, you had the likes of Darren Mitchell and Mitchell Santner, who's quickly becoming this sort of MS Dhoni figure of specialising and finishing off chasers who were able to sort of reel the target in with around about an over to spare. So it was a good performance from the Black Caps. And, you know, going into this tournament, I remember us talking on Thursday, Ryan, there was a little bit of air of, are we that confident having lost 4-1 to India in the series preceding this? But I think what New Zealand fans can take a lot of confidence from is that we've got power at the top in terms of Allen and Seifert, and then experience lower down the order when it comes to those high pressure moments when you think about Mitchell Santner, Daryl Mitchell, Mark Chapman. So I think this is a great start for the Black Caps. This was sort of the bogey game in the group, and they've set themselves up really well.
Plain sailing from here is what you're saying, Nathan. The other thing is that you might have been actually right about other stuff, Cam, like when you said don't worry so much about the games, bilateral games that we might be winning or losing, because when it comes to these competitions, they sort of have a life of their own.
Yeah, I just wasn't that worried about Afghanistan, even though they beat us at the last T20 World Cup. I thought, oh, that was just a one-off. They're not going to push us. And then halfway through this game, I was like, actually, we could actually lose this again. But no, I think they'll be fine now. They got UAE on Tuesday. I assume that'll be an easy game. Maybe I'll be wrong, but that's the thing about T20s.
really close. Like Nepal almost beat England overnight. So you're going to get these games going to be tight between the minnows and the big teams. I mean, that would have been very embarrassing for Brendan McCullum after losing an Ashes series in Australia to lose to Nepal. But they just held on. So yeah, we're getting close games.
Yeah, I didn't. Sometimes with sport, I'm like, is this a dumb question to ask? And then I have to ask it anyway. But Nepal and cricket, are they that great?
Yeah, no. They're definitely minnows. Yeah.
All right. Right, so Super Bowl. Only game in America today, of course, is Super Bowl. Cam, for those uninitiated, give us a quick rundown of what we can expect.
Yeah, so we've got the Seattle Seahawks versus New England Patriots. Probably at the start of the season, no one really expected these two to be in the Super Bowl, especially the Patriots. They only won 4 games last year, losing 13. They've kind of flipped it this year. They've got this young quarterback, Drake May, who's only in his second year. So, yeah, I mean, as the other big teams like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles kind of fell away during the season, we've been not stuck with these two, but I just don't think anyone really expected it. It doesn't mean it'll be a good game. I mean, the Seahawks are highly favoured. They've got a quarterback, Sam Darnold, who's playing for his 5th team, I think, in 6 years. So he's been dropped by so many teams. No one really expected him to do well, and it could be a fairy tale story for him. So yeah, I think it should be a good game. Hopefully it's close. They've got 2 strong defensive teams, so I don't think we might not see too many points, but hopefully it will be close.
And we're always looking. Is there a Kiwi connection here somewhere?
There is. George Halani. He's New Zealand born. He left New Zealand before he went to school to move to the States. So he has got a grandmother and a brother in New Zealand. He's a backup running back for the Seahawks.
Cool.
So he might touch the ball 2 or 3 times. He's kind of come into the side after they had an injury in the playoffs. So but he's a good solid player.
How much would you be paid for just touching the ball a couple of times in one of these games?
Yeah, well, he probably might be on like a lower contract. But yeah, if he scores a touchdown, he might be able to get a decent deal in the off-season.
Yeah, I saw that the ads were like 12 million each. 12 million for a 30-seconder.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind.
Big money.
I wouldn't mind.
Big money. Now, Winter Olympics. So we got Zoe Sadowski-Synnott in an hour?
She's on now.
She's on now.
Qualifiers and had a great opening run, scored 90 and was topping the leaderboard just before we came on here. So it looks pretty likely that she'll sort of move into the next round. So great start from her.
And poor old Lindsay Vonn. I mean, that's all I've been watching.
Yeah, well,
she's missing one. She's had a complete knee replacement. The other one's got no ligament. Like it's just a shell of itself.
Yeah.
So what happened was...
Well, we shocked. So she ruptured her ACL a week ago, and she said, "No, I'm all good to go. The doctor's given me the all clear." All the talk ahead of this downhill final was all about Lindsay Vonn, who's 41 years old, and the first gate she crashes. Of course, that's going to happen. Who was not shocked that she crashed? So she got airlifted off. Pretty sad finish for her career, but the actual winner, Breezy Johnson, young American who was defending champion, there was no talk about her at all leading into this final. It was all about Lindsay Vonn. She's taken all the limelight. Poor Breezy Johnson, she turns out winning the gold.
Yeah, and who's heard of her?
No one.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's because we love a comeback story, don't we? As you say, she's 41. It was like, this is your moment. She won 2 world champs, was it? Or two big competitions this year. It could have been her moment, but sadly she was screaming and then chop it off the... Literally. That was brutal.
Screaming.
That's what happens.
The old bung knee.
Yeah. All right, boys, good to see you both. Thank you. Cam McMillan and Nathan Lim from the Herald. It is 1 after 8. You're watching Ryan Bridge today. Kia ora, good morning. Monday the 9th of February. Great to have your company after this long weekend. So much effluent, sadly, gets pumped into our oceans. It's happening right now in Wellington. What does it do to our marine life? That is the question we're asking in about 7 minutes' time. Is this a temporary blip for our fish? Do they bounce back? What about our shellfish? We'll speak to a professor shortly. A new super strength MDMA party drug has found its way here. It's 3 to 4 times as strong as regular MDMA. And before you ask where you can get it, stop and think about the damage it can do to your body. The Drug Foundation is live. Then, after the 8:30 news, John Aitken, the Kiwi star of the reality TV juggernaut Married at First Sight. He's in the studio to spill the tea on the biggest show in television this year. So much more to come. First Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant is back in court this week, seeking leave to appeal his convictions and vacate his guilty pleas. He was jailed for life in 2020 after admitting murdering 51 people and wounding another 40 at 2 Christchurch mosques in March 2019. The central issue for the court will be whether when he entered his guilty pleas, he was incapable of making rational decisions as a result of the conditions of his imprisonment. The hearing is set down for 5 days in the Court of Appeal in Wellington. Growing risk for the government's flagship regional development body. The Herald reports more than half of Crown Regional Holdings' $433 million loan book is now considered at risk of or currently in default. The organisation manages hundreds of millions of dollars in loan and equity funding provided to businesses, including through the Provincial Growth Fund and the Regional Infrastructure Fund. Chairman John Ray says that the investments remain concentrated in sectors and regions where traditional financing is limited. He says the economic environment has remained challenging. The early childhood education sector is facing a growing workforce challenge. New data shows nearly 34,000 teaching staff were employed last year, but just over two-thirds were qualified. Almost 10,000 staff had no formal qualifications, nearly double the number in 2011. A disagreement between the Department of Conservation and its minister over who should have to pay to visit conservation land. A regulatory impact statement shows DOC wanted everyone to pay new levies for accessing certain sites, including New Zealand citizens. Conservation Minister Tama Potaka wanted the charge to only impact international visitors. DOC's option to charge all visitors was expected to bring in $254.8 million in revenue over 5 years, whereas Potaka's would bring in $236.6 million. A major blaze at a Taupo high school has been brought under control. Fire and emergency crews from 8 areas were sent to the fire at Taupo Nuiatia College just after 2 yesterday afternoon as thick black smoke spread across the town. The school will be closed today, and the Ministry of Education says it will probably be closed tomorrow too, while the site is assessed and made safe. Residents in Wellington's south coast will have to brace for more foul odour from Moore Point's treatment plant as wastewater continues to flow into the sea. Work continued over the weekend to clean out biological material from the plant. Wellington Water says that the priority is to make it as safe as possible to determine what needs to be repaired or replaced.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
New Zealand's men have beaten Afghanistan by 5 wickets, chasing 183 with 13 balls to spare to open their T20 World Cup cricket campaign in Chennai. New Zealand's women's have claimed a 3rd win from 4 events on the World 7 Series, beating Australia in the final at Perth. Skier Lindsay Vonn's quest to compete at the Olympics, despite recently rupturing the anterior cruciate ligament in her left knee, has seen the 41-year-old airlifted from the course in the women's downhill.
You're watching Ryan Bridge today on Herald Now and 3 Now. Great to have your company on this Monday morning, just gone 6 minutes after 8. A video has emerged of a police car having a collision with a motorbike on Auckland's southern motorway. Now, it is a slow-moving accident. You can see the guy gets off, looks a little bit hurt, but apparently everyone walked away largely unscathed. This happened on Thursday in peak hour with traffic queuing to get out of the city for Waitangi weekend. Police say it was a slow-speed crash and an inquiry into it is ongoing.
Herald Now weather.
To Maria, good morning. A little chilly again today in the South Island. Don't worry, it does get very hot later in the week. As for today, though, not much going on thanks to a ridge of high pressure with mostly fine skies for the lower south. Just some morning and maybe evening cloud for some with east to southeast winds. Could be a few showers around Banks Peninsula and maybe Timaru. Otherwise, the rest of the South Island will remain dry with developing easterlies for Christchurch. It's a beautiful fine day for the lower North Island. Wellington, it'll be one of those days. Blue skies and just an afternoon sea breeze. Now the days are all good here once any cloud clears, but there will be a couple of afternoon and evening showers returning to Bay of Plenty and the Central Plateau. And cloud clears early for the upper north and the day looks good. Unfortunately, a few showers will spread through from late afternoon or early evening for Hamilton and Auckland.
Right, it is just gone 8 after 8, and a very important message from Cheryl after we spoke to the boys in sport and failed to mention the Davis Cup tennis players in Whangarei yesterday. Cheryl, good morning to you. Thanks for emailing the program. Cheryl says, please acknowledge, Ryan, the wonderful win of our Davis Cup tennis players yesterday in Whangarei. They gave their all. We were so proud of their enthusiasm, and with such a small venue, we as spectators realised the huge effort entailed by these young men. So there you go. Congratulations to you all. It is time now for politics. Waitangi celebrations were marked on Friday, where ACT leader David Seymour's prayers were met with boos. And Te Pāti Māori presented anything but a united front. Here to unpack it all is Adam Pearce, our Deputy Political Editor, who was there. Adam, good morning.
G'day, Ryan.
Hey, we'll start with Ngāti Porou not really happy with Rawiri Waititi over the Waitangi weekend. What irked them? Like, what was the situation there?
Well, that will be Ngāpui, not Ngāti Porou. Just
forgive me.
Make sure it's get the right iwi there, just to make sure that we don't cause an incident. So it comes down to this haka, right? And so most people will have seen it over the weekend. We had Rawiri Waititi offer a speech on the pai, and then his wife, Kiri, who's also the daughter of John Tamahiri, performs this haka and gets really quite close to those on the home side, particularly Eru Kapakingi, who's been at the heart of the dysfunction for the party. And that prompted a reaction from his mother, Maria Meno Kapakingi, who is also the MP for Tai Tukaro, who the party tried to expel last year. And all of that has gone to undermine the central message that Rawiri was trying to send, which was all the dysfunction that the party has gone through. It's about coming together and talking it through and resolving it, getting through to the other side. So I think there's a bit of sadness that it's undermined that message. And also the effect of it really has been that the iwi has come out and said, well, unless something changes before the election, TPM has lost the Te Tai Tukaro seat, which, it really informs quite an interesting race there when you've got Maria Meno. Will she run for the party? Will she not? Who knows? Maybe she'll do it as an independent. There's Labour's candidate. There's a strong Greens candidate. So it really added to the whole context of the Waitangi celebrations.
Yeah, because there's talk now that they might just hold one, but Te Pāti Māori could get wiped out of the rest of the seats.
Yes, well, there's a suggestion. It was Adrian Rurafe who went on TVNZ's Q&A, who said TPM would be lucky to get one seat, which would be a massive shock given they got 6, I think it was, at the 2023 election. So, I think there's a lot of water to flow under that bridge before the election in 9 months' time.
Now, Parliament returning this week after Pina Henare's resignation announcement. How have politicians reacted to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a jam-packed week, and I'd imagine when we come back from Waitangi, usually that's kind of the start of when the political machine kind of gets into gear. We've obviously got Moa Point, the Prime Minister, it sounds like, will be meeting with the Wellington Mayor this afternoon, so we should be getting an update on that. There'll be a number of other items through the week. We've got the likes of Penny Henare's resignation from Labour. There'll be some more questions on that, given the speculation about how that happened. We've also got Brenton Tarrant's Court of Appeal, which the government will be looking at very closely. And as we've said around Te Pāti Māori, we're still yet to hear the verdict of Maria Meno Kapakingi's court case, where she's challenging her expulsion. So a lot of things potentially taking place this week.
Absolutely. All right, I appreciate your time this morning. That is Adam Pearce, Herald's Deputy Political Editor, with us from Wellington, and apologies again to Ngāpuhi for that little muck up at the start. Right, it is 12 minutes after 8. Wellington's south coast is bearing the brunt of what's been described as an environmental disaster, with the Moore Point wastewater treatment plant continuing to send millions of litres of sewage into the sea. Beaches are closed, but it doesn't just happen in Wellington. Every time it rains, it feels like we're pumping our own stuff out into the sea. What does it do to the marine life there? Andrew Jeffs is Professor of Marine Science at the University of Auckland and joins me live this morning at the desk. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So can we speak generally, and then we might come to Wellington? But when you have a sewage overflow or a spill, does it affect marine life, and for how long?
It certainly affects marine life. Obviously, you're putting a mix of material into the environment, and some of that material has a short-term effect, and some of it has a forever effect. So, for example, things like plastics, which don't break down in the marine environment very quickly at all. They're there for hundreds of years. You've got heavy metals, which are often toxic. Once they're in the system, they're in the system for good. And so they reverberate through the food chains. Animals eat them, and then other animals eat them. Some of those animals, like fishes, we might catch them and eat them. So it goes through the whole food chain. Yes.
Circle of life.
It is a circle of life.
Where do the heavy metals come from?
They come from all over the place, but a key one, for example, is vehicles. We have copper and lead, which is included in tyre construction, and as the tyres wear, they wash off onto the road. And New Zealand's, a lot of our stormwater just runs into the sewage systems, and when that overflows into the sea, those heavy metals end up in the sea. And both of those metals are very toxic to marine life, particularly copper.
Right, and then so it kills some fish, kills some shellfish.
Shellfish in particular, or it can do things like interfere with their reproduction, so that they can't, they get weird reproductive patterns, and so they don't reproduce anymore.
Right, that's sad. And then what does it do to us? Not much until there's enough of it.
Some heavy metals are toxic to humans. For example, there's one, cadmium, which once it reaches certain levels, it can cause problems in humans as well, and shellfish tend to accumulate it.
How close are we to reaching the bad levels, the dangerous levels?
It varies in parts of the country, but in parts of Auckland Harbour, for example, with historic pollution, we're already at those limits.
Which is where they say don't take shellfish from this area.
Generally,
that kind
yes.
Of thing. Right, let's talk Wellington. So there was initially an outflow pipe 5 metres basically at the beach where they were pumping raw untreated sewage. Now it's 1.5 to 2 k's offshore. But they're still saying this morning, they told us no swimming for months before this stops. So what does that mean for...
My understanding is that they've got a limit to how much they can put down the pipe. Once the flows go above that limit, they have to discharge locally. So you've got ongoing pollution in the coastal environment as well as offshore. So it'll be going on for months, and so there'll be that accumulation of those toxic materials in the environment. There's also a human risk because humans produce a lot of bacteria. People who are sick produce bacteria and viruses that are infectious, and many of those can actually survive in salt water. And when you get waves or wind flicking up spray, it can aerosolise or just basically put them into the air and blow them on shore. So somewhere like Wellington is, it's got an issue there because it's a windy city, strong southerly. It could be carrying those viruses and bacteria inland. So, one of the warnings is don't walk on the beach. Well, if it's strong southerly, I'd be cautious. So places like California, they've found increased rates of respiratory illness and stomach complaints from people living close to the coast where there's raw sewage being discharged off the coast.
What types of viruses, bacteria are you talking about, like Giardia or something?
No, not Giardia, but fecal bacteria that cause, and rotaviruses, for example, that cause, severe
Campylobacter or something like
yeah.
that. Right. So it comes out of us.
Yep.
We pump it into the ocean.
Yep.
Comes to the surface of the sea. Wind whips it up onshore. you're out for a walk with the dog.
And you breathe it in, and it infects you.
And this is months we're talking about in Wellington.
Yes.
Well, I mean, what about hanging out the washing and stuff? And then you're getting your washing in and you're putting your clothes on. I mean, the whole thing just seems a bit filthy, doesn't it?
Well, I guess it's a broader issue that, the infrastructure designed to deal with these things is struggling to cope with the loads that we're subjecting it to.
And when you think about further out, they're pumping it further out into the Cook Strait.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, for months, does that have an effect, or is the ocean so large that it can absorb that, and the marine life will be all right out there catching fish, etc.?
Well, it certainly reduces the risk onshore for people in terms of collecting shellfish or diseases blowing onshore. But offshore, the Cook Strait's got very strong currents, so it's being diluted and dispersed quite quickly. I mean, that's a good thing in a way, that it's reducing the localised effect, but a bad thing on the other side, because it's dispersing the effect over a bigger area, but at lower concentrations. So in places like Cook Strait's an important fishing area, for example. There's a big canyon there, which is an important hoki fishery, for example. Roughly 20,000 tonnes of fish come out of that area a year. And so those fish will be getting, will be consuming some of that material, and so it'll be getting into seafood products.
Sorry to laugh, but so 20,000 tonnes of hoki comes from underneath basically Cook Strait.
Around 20,000 tonnes of seafood generally.
Right.
Yeah.
And that'll have a sprinkling of Wellington's
they'll certainly be eating it, and the studies show that things like plastics, microplastics, can work their way through the gut and into the tissues.
All right. Well, on that cheering note, thank you for coming. Love the shirt, by the way.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in this morning, Andrew, and nice to meet you. Andrew Jess, Professor of Marine Science at the University of Auckland. Right, it is 19 minutes after 8. Drug testing organisations have been seeing unusually high doses of MDMA pills around recently, and we're talking here 3 to 4 times what they would consider a common dose. So what's with the ultra-high potency and how dangerous is it? Sarah Helm is the Drug Foundation Executive Director, joins us this morning. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
So how many of these higher dose pills have you actually found or detected?
Yeah, so just to clarify, MDMA is a stimulant. It's a stimulant that's sort of at the lower end of harm usually. One of the most concerning things, of course, about MDMA is what it might be, because it's illicitly purchased, and therefore drug checking is incredibly useful for us to find these kinds of things. So about half or more than half of the pill form of MDMA that we're seeing is coming through as being over twice a normal dose. So relatively common in the pill form. So MDMA comes as a pill, powder, crystal, those kinds of forms.
And when you say, does that mean that it's a greater percentage of what you're getting is the actual drug that you think you should be getting and not a bunch of other stuff? Or is it the same quantity but a higher concentration, if that makes sense?
Yeah, about 20% of the MDMA wasn't what people thought it was, but actually this potency issue is more common, particularly in the pill form of MDMA. So we're seeing that come through. Yeah.
Right, and Sarah, do we know where it's coming from or how you identify which is which?
The best way is to come into a drug checking clinic. We can't exactly test for potency, but we can give an approximation of it. And one of the things to be aware of is that even within one pill, the potency can vary wildly. We call this a chocolate chip cookie effect, where it might be inconsistent within the pill itself. And another thing that's really important to bear in mind is it might seem like it's more bang for buck, if you like. We'd all love a super strength, some other product. But with this product in particular, there's a risk of overamping, which is a type of stimulant overdose. So you can actually overdose from stimulants. And imagine if you took one of these pills and also had some coffee or an energy drink or a different stimulant. And that can result in things like a racing heart, agitation, paranoia, chest pain, those kinds of problems. So at that point you want to be considering calling for help.
All right, Sarah, appreciate that warning this morning. Thank you. Sarah Helm, New Zealand Drug Foundation Executive Director. It is 22 after 8. Time for a quick break and our panel when we come back.
Term deposit rates are falling, but your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Forsyth Barr investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Forsyth Barr, investment advice.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning. Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, who's got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
Welcome back. We'll talk to the shrink, do we call them that, the psychiatrist from Maths, John Aitken. He's on the show after 8:30 this morning. First, it's to the big issues of the day. Maria Slade, Senior Business Desk journalist, is with us this morning on the panel. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. And Rob Campbell, former Health NZ Chair, is with us too. Rob, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're still a former something.
Yeah. All that bright future ahead of me, and that's all you can think of.
It's terrible, isn't it? We'll change it next time, I promise. Anyway, good morning. Good to have you here. So let's start with, what should we talk about? Oh, well, actually, I want to talk about the Crown Regional Holdings story. Rob, this is the government picking winners in the regions and saying, these are the business, you can't get private funding, we'll invest. And we saw this story this morning from Matt Nippert. We've had him on the show. Should the government be trying to pick winners?
Well, they're always trying to pick winners in one way or another. Should they be loaning money? It's now mainly loans, some early equity investments. Should they be doing that? The history of it hasn't been that great. So I would say it's not that they shouldn't be doing it, but that they should be doing it in a more considered way and a more controlled way than many of the exercises in the past. So there's no doubt there's some loose loans in this portfolio. It's in order to promote regional development, so to some extent you can understand that, but I think we can improve the way we do these things is what I would say. It doesn't mean you should stop doing it.
Maria, if the private sector doesn't want to touch something, is that not a sign that the government probably shouldn't?
Oh, it's such a vexed issue. There is a school of thought that you shouldn't extend help in the form of loans because you're putting some firms on a hiding to nothing because they'll never be able to repay them. We've seen that with the COVID cash flow loans. There was a story just the other day in the Herald about how there's about a fifth of them that'll never be repaid, some 477 million. So, there is an argument that maybe that's not the best way to support small businesses. The part of this infrastructure fund where they are actually investing in firms, that's another matter again, because that's venture capital, which is inherently risky. So you're always going to have losers. That's just the way it goes. And a professional angel investor or a venture capital fund would have a portfolio of things, knowing that a certain number of them are going to fail. Whereas the government is strategically picking things in the regions that they kind of hope will work. So it's not really, dare I say it, the professional way that you would go about it.
I feel like you guys are both stepping around this. I mean, it's just a pile of money being thrown in the wrong place, isn't it? I mean,
well, look, you need to go loan by loan, but some of it has been done in a pretty poor way. So I agree with what Maria's saying. If you're taking equity type risk, you should call it equity. And so calling something a loan doesn't make it really a loan. You're taking equity type risk in a lot of these things. And that requires a different kind of mindset, I think, than typically these funds have had. So it's not that I think it's necessarily been badly managed now, and I know there's been some suggestion of that. I don't think that John Ray and his team at the organisation now are handling it badly, but some of the inception of these loans and investments was politically driven rather than on a sober economic basis. So that's the issue there, I think.
Yeah, and we'll probably see more of it at this election, despite everything we're talking about right now. You've been watching the Olympics. Well, the opening ceremony, I caught a bit of that, looked pretty cool, but also loads of protests. A whole array of issues, including the environment. You shouldn't be having the Olympics because of climate change, inequality. There was even riots apparently at some point over the weekend. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, this inequity kind of argument that's going on in Milan, where they've had a system of attracting wealthy people to the city, and so property prices have shot up. And you see that around the world. You see it in Queenstown. You see it in places like Denver and Colorado, where there are people that just, the workers need to work there, but they can't afford to live there, kind of things. And that's happening around the world. So it's kind of a fair point, I think, the protesters are making. Whether we should have the Olympics or not, well, you know, they argue that it brings a lot to the local economy. You know, we do like to watch it.
Yeah.
So
we can't take all the fun out of life, can we?
You can't take all the fun out of life, no.
Well, I think there's a lot of problems in northern Italy, so you can understand what the genesis of the protests is. And this is a sort of a pretty gross display of the north of the world's wealth on display at something like the Winter Olympics. So I can understand why that's happening. I think people should have expected it to happen. You know, I saw some suggestion that using smoke bombs was environmentally insensitive. I think that means, I actually looked it up, and you can get environmentally sensitive smoke bombs. So if anyone's out there is worried about that.
I was worried about it this morning.
No, there are some environmentally friendly smoke bombs which you can buy.
Oh, good to know.
Learn something new every day.
Good to know, because I just thought how ironic they're complaining about the climate change and emissions, and then using fireworks to make the point. But no, that's good to know. Good to know. Now, 4-day working week. We had a 4-day week last week, and gosh, it was productive. Look how brilliant we all were. So why don't we have more of that?
Well, of course, this is not a new concept. Andrew Barnes from Perpetual Guardian has been running this model for quite some time. He's kind of like the forefather, if you like, of the 4-day week. He reckons it works. I guess it depends on your business model and how you structure it and how you make it, and the sort of work you're doing too. I mean, it wouldn't suit every type of enterprise, would it? But maybe an office-based thing, if you had a few structures around it. I don't know. What do you reckon, Rob?
Yeah, look, I know some jobs where people probably don't even work 4 days, but there are some jobs which are amenable to changing the hours around in that way, and I think flexible working hours are basically a pretty good thing, and we should look at more of it where it can apply. But it's not something that you can just do as a general rule. And I'm hopeless on this. I'm a workaholic. I actually prefer 7-day weeks personally.
Do you?
No, that doesn't suit everybody.
No. See, I don't. We work long hours. I feel like, because we do both ends of the day, getting ready for this show and then doing the show. But I feel like if everybody else did 4-day weeks, then we could do it as well. Because then, you know, there are some jobs where you sort of have to be there on a weekday. You know what I mean? Right. If you're a cafe in the city, you got to be open 5 days a week, because that's when.
But there is a certain argument that you don't bother sending people emails on Friday afternoons because you won't get a response.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that old saying: everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, isn't it? Everyone would like there to be 4-day weeks, but actually, when it comes round to it, is it inconvenient for you, or do you not earn enough
in
4 days? There are all those sort of questions, but it can be done, and we should be looking for ways to adjust our lifestyles to modern technologies and modern ways of working. That's certainly true.
All right. Good to have you both on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being with me. That is Maria Slade, Senior Business Desk journalist, and Rob Campbell, who does a lot of wonderful things, 7 days a week, but happens to also have been the former Health New Zealand chair. It is 29 away from 9.
Herald Now News. Powered by News Talk ZB.
Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant is back in court this week, seeking leave to appeal his convictions and vacate his guilty pleas. He was jailed for life in 2020 after admitting murdering 51 people and wounding another 40 at 2 Christchurch mosques in March 2019. The central issue for the court will be whether when he entered his guilty pleas, he was incapable of making rational decisions as a result of the conditions of his imprisonment. The hearing is set down for 5 days in the Court of Appeal in Wellington. Growing risk for the government's flagship regional development body. The Herald reports more than half of Crown Regional Holdings' $433 million loan book is now considered at risk of or currently in default. The organisation manages hundreds of millions of dollars in loan and equity funding provided to businesses, including through the Provincial Growth Fund and the Regional Infrastructure Fund. Chairman John Ray says that the investments remain concentrated in sectors and regions where traditional financing is limited. He says the economic environment has remained challenging. The early childhood education sector is facing a growing workforce challenge. New data shows nearly 34,000 teaching staff were employed last year, but just over two-thirds were qualified. Almost 10,000 staff had no formal qualifications, nearly double the number in 2011. A disagreement between the Department of Conservation and its minister over who should have to pay to visit conservation land. A regulatory impact statement shows DOC wanted everyone to pay new levies for accessing certain sites, including New Zealand citizens. Conservation Minister Tama Potaka wanted the charge to only impact international visitors. DOC's option to charge all visitors was expected to bring in $254.8 million in revenue over 5 years, whereas Potaka's would bring in $236.6 million. A major blaze at a Taupo High School has been brought under control. Fire and emergency crews from 8 areas were sent to the fire at Taupo Nuiatia College just after 2 yesterday afternoon as thick black smoke spread across the town. The school will be closed today, and the Ministry of Education says it will probably be closed tomorrow too, while the site is assessed and made safe. Residents in Wellington's south coast will have to brace for more foul odour from Moore Point's treatment plant as wastewater continues to flow into the sea. Work continued over the weekend to clean out biological material from the plant. Wellington Water says that the priority is to make it as safe as possible to determine what needs to be repaired or replaced.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
New Zealand's men have beaten Afghanistan by 5 wickets, chasing 183 with 13 balls to spare to open their T20 World Cup cricket campaign in Chennai. New Zealand's women's have claimed a 3rd win from 4 events on the World 7 Series, beating Australia in the final at Perth. Skier Lindsay Vonn's quest to compete at the Olympics, despite recently rupturing the anterior cruciate ligament in her left knee, has seen the 41-year-old airlifted from the course in the women's downhill.
25 minutes away from 9 now, and we'll go to a pod of orca who've been seen in the shallows of Papamoa Beach, close to an ocean swimmer who is attempting to set a new world record. Jono Riddler is his name. You've probably heard the story. Swimming the length of New Zealand's coastline to raise awareness about bottom trawling. He described the orca encounter as pretty cool.
How about those orcas? Yeah, that was pretty cool. I've never seen orcas in person before in real life. Yeah. I know we saw them from a distance, and it's a bit harder actually seeing them at sea level because you got a different vantage point, but I can see the big dorsal fins, hard to miss that, so yeah, really cool. And I was hoping I might be able to get a swim with them, but they were off chasing stingrays, I think, further down the shore. So no, that was very cool, very cool. I think I can somewhat tick that off the list, although I have to have a closer experience some of the time.
Herald Now weather.
Te Maria, good morning. A little chilly again today in the South Island. Don't worry, it does get very hot later in the week. As for today though, not much going on thanks to a ridge of high pressure with mostly fine skies for the lower south. Just some morning and maybe evening cloud for some with east to southeast winds. Could be a few showers around Banks Peninsula and maybe Timaru. Otherwise, the rest of the South Island will remain dry with developing easterlies for Christchurch. It's a beautiful fine day for the lower North Island. Wellington, it'll be one of those days. Blue skies and just an afternoon sea breeze. Now the days are all good here once any cloud clears, but there will be a couple of afternoon and evening showers returning to Bay of Plenty and the Central Plateau. And cloud clears early for the upper north and the day looks good. Unfortunately, a few showers will spread through from late afternoon or early evening for Hamilton and Auckland.
Married at First Sight. It's that reality show where strangers are paired by relationship experts, meet for the first time at the altar and get happily married forever after.
I now ask if any person has a genuine reason why these two should not be joined in marriage. Please speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm really, really sorry. I don't think I can marry you.
Oh my God!
You must have got my email. I'm your Nigerian prince.
Brave new strangers
I actually feel sick. I don't want to be with anyone that gets arrested.
are taking the ultimate leap.
I don't know if I'm going to be matched with a man or a woman.
I'm not coming for my husband. For love.
You look beautiful, Mum. Yes. Let's do it.
Yes, it's back. 13 seasons under his belt does John Aitken. He's witnessed firsthand what it takes for a couple to work and, well, all the rest of it. He's with us at the desk this morning. John, it's great to see you again. Welcome back.
Good morning. This is always a highlight. I get to see you just before the launch of our show over here in New Zealand, and it is very fresh and unique this year.
Yeah, what's new? What's different?
Well, we've got a different storyline with the women on the show. They band together. They call themselves the Boss Babes, and they come for everyone. They come for women that stand up to them, they come for their husbands, and they come for the experts. So they're outspoken, they tell me they're speaking their truth, and they're incredibly overpowering and at times very toxic.
Really? And how do you think the audience will respond to them?
I'm not sure. I think there'll be a real storyline as to language, particularly because these dinner parties and the way they treat each other, they can be very, very abrasive. And so I think people will come away thinking, when is it okay to be honest and when is it disrespectful and offensive? And it makes for the relationships on the show this year very challenging because you're trying to fall in love while there's so much hostility.
In general, are the men or the women more toxic on this program?
We've certainly had numerous examples, Ryan, of men behaving badly on the show. This year, we were surprised that there was this subset of women that really stood out. And I think one of the intriguing things about them is that they don't know why they're single. But you can watch it and you can figure it out fairly quickly. So that's one of the very strong storylines. We also have a bisexual woman on the show. She's a fashionista. She's beautiful. She says, John, I don't care whether you match me with a man or a woman, just surprise me.
Okay.
So she walks down the aisle this year and she doesn't know whether a man or woman is going to turn around. So it's very compelling to watch her story.
Why haven't there been more of them throughout the seasons?
It just depends a little bit on who puts their hands up. And so, what we can do is get quite a good deal of diversity in terms of age, culture, backgrounds, orientations, but it also comes down to who is available for that particular year. We would like more, but it just depends on who wants to come forward.
How much of the reason they are picked has to do with their social media following, how ripped their abs are, and how much script is written on their chest?
We do specialise in tattoos and people that don't eat a lot of carbs and that are particularly ripped. It is one of the things that I think people watch the show because it goes into 120 countries, so it's very, very popular. And I think people watch it kind of intrigued by these characters that are out there. They're running along the beaches of Sydney or the Gold Coast and they've got this big hair and these amazing bodies and they are real people, but they just, you don't see them in your everyday life. And so I think it just draws people in. You know, they're very visually entertaining.
And you know the apartments that they put them in?
Yes.
Yeah, do they make them purposely tiny just so they get close to each other and then get in each other's faces?
Yeah, I mean,
they do, don't they? I mean, let's be honest.
They're not that spacious.
No.
Not like your apartment.
I've seen prison cells bigger.
That's right. But the funny thing about it is that everything is sort of on tilt for the 10 weeks that they're together. So what challenges couples normally experience in 5 years, they'll get it in 10 weeks. And one of them is moving in together. You've got honeymoons, meeting the family and friends. You've got intimacy week, revelations week. You've got a couples retreat. All these things that, generally speaking, couples will have over years, it's thrown at them. And one of the big ones is moving into a, relatively quaint, tight, small one-bedroom apartment and how they're going to cope. Some of them do very well, some of them really struggle with that.
What's changing? Because we, as you know, last time we spoke, we were in a big TV studio.
We were.
Now we're a streaming show.
Yeah.
How is maths having to change or evolve with the platforms?
Well, I think certainly the numbers in Australia when it launched last week, they're up from last year. So that's amazing that it can still do that. But I think what we're doing now is we're also thinking about companion shows and getting people onto streaming platforms. So Stan, for instance, have got a show after the dinner party, which happens every week once the dinner parties start, where it's sort of like a big show behind the scenes footage. They've got me, they've got hosts, they've got guests and also participants. And it's sort of bringing people together on a different platform to talk about what they've just seen. So I think it's changing, the streaming, the whole area and media landscape's really in front of my eyes, becoming very different now.
John, always good to chat to you, and very much looking forward to this season of Maths.
Can I just say we do have some love there for you as well, Ron, because I know you're a romantic.
Does it last?
Well, we'll leave it up there. We'll just let you see what happens.
There's your tease. There's your tease. John, good to see you. John Aitken, maths relationship expert with us this morning. It is 16 minutes away from 9. Oh, you can watch that, by the way, on, I'm sure. Anyone know where you can watch it? 3 now? 3 and 3 now? 3 now. 3 now, there you go.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Right, time for a quick break. Then, if you've ever struggled to find the door handles on a new car, it seems the Chinese government is on your side. They're banning flush door handles. We'll find out why with Driven's David Linklater next.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build with GGs because of good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Still can't get enough.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
14 minutes away from 9. China has just banned electronically retractable door handles over fears that flush handles may not work in an emergency. So could other countries, including New Zealand, follow suit? David Linklater is our Driven editor, joins us this morning. David, good morning.
Good morning.
So how is this a real safety concern?
It probably is. There was a very highly publicised accident in China involving a vehicle from Xiaomi, which is not a brand we have here. But the flush door handles were damaged in the accident and emergency services couldn't get the car open because the car lost power. It was an EV. So with no power, the door handles couldn't be opened. And so this created a huge kind of media storm, and the government has actually moved to say that they don't want these door handles anymore. So from the 1st of January next year, if you launch a new car in China, it can't have flush door handles, which are quite a common thing now. I mean, they're associated with EVs, and Tesla actually started it sort of back in 2012, I think, with the Model S. But lots of other manufacturers have adopted them, and they're not even an EV thing anymore. Like a Toyota CHR, for example, which is a very mainstream car, it has flush door handles.
Why are they there? Normally, technology is meant to make life easier. I find them more work.
I don't think you understand technology, Ryan. It's there to look cool. The argument is that flush door handles make cars more aerodynamic, especially EVs. I don't know whether that's the case because there's plenty of car companies that know a lot about aerodynamics that don't have flush door handles.
No,
but that's
we've
the
got
idea.
wing mirrors still. Let's be honest. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, and there's again a move. We're going to go off topic now, but there's a move to make cameras, serve the function of door mirrors. For that reason, a lot of cars now, a lot of EVs have really tiny wing mirrors, and they're not mirrors at all, they're cameras. But that's a whole other argument. Lots of companies say they're not particularly aerodynamic either. So.
But also, I mean, do you not run into the technology problem, which is if something happens to the power or a camera goes out or whatever, then your safety might be compromised?
Absolutely. It's a shame the car industry hadn't have thought of this 10 years ago. So a lot of these door handles do have a mechanical release, and most of them on the inside of the car have a mechanical override. So you can always get them open because the latches on the inside are electric as well. You normally just press a button to open the door. So the mechanical releases are on the inside, but of course if there's an accident and the occupants aren't able to operate those, you're in trouble. Yeah. So this new rule says that you can have flush door handles, but they have to have an aperture where you can get your hand in. I think it's 60 centimetres wide, 20 deep. Millimetres, not centimetres, 20 mils deep, so that in the event of an emergency, somebody can actually get their hand in and pull the door open.
Okay. Otherwise, just drive with your windows down at all times.
Absolutely, yeah.
You'll be fine. And now, you've just published a list of the cheapest new cars in New Zealand. Is this everything under 30k?
Yeah, as far as we can see, it's everything under 30k. So motoring journalists are always accused of living in fantasy world and driving expensive cars. So we like to keep it real.
Good.
We do this every so often. It's good fun to do. And I suppose the main thing about this list is a few years ago, you'd sort of look for cars that are around $20,000. It's a nice kind of, entry point for new cars. You're sort of looking more at 30 now, so the prices have crept up a bit, but there are still plenty under 25.
What's made your list?
There's a couple of MGs, there's a couple of Suzukis, probably the brands that you'd expect. There's a pure electric car, BYD Atto 1, which is a car that's just come out. We haven't actually driven one of those yet, driving it this week. That's a little city hatchback, and that's 5-star NCAP rated car, so it's a really interesting car for under 30 grand. There's a Mahindra. There's actually two Mahindras there. We like to throw a wild card in sometimes. You can buy a Mahindra pickup ute for less than 30 grand.
Really?
Yeah, interesting vehicle.
I'm going to have to Google that one.
Try not to make a face when you see what it looks like.
Really? Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of MGs.
Oh, those ones. Yeah.
You see them around. No, they're fantastic vehicles. They're famously durable. Like an Indian brand, really well known for just being incredibly durable. So you can only buy a cab chassis, so you'd have to pay for the tray and a few extras. But that'd be a great thing to go shopping.
Bring your own door handles, as usual. All right, brilliant. Good to talk to you as always, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Linklater, Driven editor with us. It is 9 to 9 now. Coming up next, AI. We'll look at AI and, well, I don't know what we're doing next. It doesn't tell me here, but something will happen. See you soon.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, If we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff. Always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Time now to talk business, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. Critical minerals are in the spotlight this morning as one company looks to list and seek government support while another gets a big knockback from the fast-track legislation. Garth Bray, host of Herald Now Business, is with us live. Garth, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Ryan. Look, just fresh out on the NZX this morning, Manuka Resources, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Trans-Tasman. Basically, they're responding to a decision that popped out very late on Thursday, right before the long weekend, from a fast-track panel that was looking at its application to do seabed mining off the South Taranaki Bight. This is pretty contentious. It's been argued under sort of previous regimes because it's obviously an area there's a lot of fishing going on, there's a lot of potential environmental impact, but obviously there's a stack of vanadium and other kinds of stuff there that's valuable. There was also a big project looked at to put some offshore wind farms there that the government's super fund was looking at backing, so a lot of interest knocking heads. And lo and behold, without any announcement or fanfare, sort of after 5 o'clock on Thursday, the panel announces it is refusing. It's given a draft refusal. So just some clarification from the company that it's got until 19th of February to comment on that. It feels that it addressed all the concerns at the time and no word exactly on whether it will push back.
Well, that's a big one.
Bit of a blow, yeah. I mean, this was they're saying this is going to knock the plan to double mineral exports. I guess you've got groups saying, look, there's a lot of fishery interests in that area that need to be thought about as well that could be impacted, and that's worth money too, and it's people's livelihoods. And there's this other sort of suggestion that offshore wind farm and a multi-billion-dollar project that the super fund was looking at backing. Maybe that has a better chance now. So, but that's, I guess, really the first significant kind of mining no that we've seen out of this process. And I guess interesting that when I was chatting last year about this with Patrick Smalley, who's been across this for Business Desk a lot, he was saying he wouldn't be surprised if there's one big no comes out of this, just so it doesn't look like
they're all too yesy.
It's a cakewalk, right? You've got
there's your big one.
This is your big one. Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
That's as you mentioned, another company, Tyco, that's sniffing around for some capital. It's looking at doing extraction of mineral sands and so on off the west coast, and it's got a plan. There's a nice write-up in the Herald yesterday, I think, from Kate McNamara talking about its ambitions. But in there as well, the interesting thing that they are trying to seek some government funding in form of a loan from the Regional Infrastructure Fund, a fund that doesn't normally loan to that kind of business on the face of it. But it looks like they're in the queue for a consideration on that. So plenty happening in that space. As we know, given also what's been going on in Washington DC with the trade negotiations around this sort of project to try and get a critical minerals kind of
framework,
stockpile, vault, call it what you will.
Now, what else you got for us, Garth?
Crikey, well, we've been trying to make sense of what's happening in Japan there. Massive stonking result there for Sanae Takaichi, the first female PM. She's now looking like she's on track for a super majority with the coalition that they've got between the LDP and the Japan Innovation Party. And that's basically a huge mandate for her plan to kind of cut consumption taxes, cut GST. So the equity markets there, the Nikkei and so on, are likely to respond pretty favourably. They've already been on a tear as she's rolled that policy out over the last few months. But some caution, I suppose, that all of that has its downsides. The bond markets are looking again at quite how they price debt from there, and so that's likely to put pressure on the yen downwards. I think we're trading about 194 at the moment against the yen. So a bit of a look out there for exporters. Obviously, we feed Japan, and it supplies us with cars and all kinds of other stuff to keep us moving. So it's a watch out for them there.
All right, Garth, appreciate your update this morning. Thank you. Right. That is Garth Bray, Herald Now business host, and we talk business every day with our partners, Forsyth Bar. Now, before we take you to our next news update with Neva, a couple of quick things to update you on from around the world. First is Epstein. You know how I told you last week that I think Epstein must have been a spy? I mean, who else runs around collecting all the little secrets of all of the rich and famous and powerful and the politicians, and then does nothing with them? Of course he's doing something with them. The guy was a spy. Question is, this is a theory, question is, was he a Mossad spy or was he a KGB spy? And over the weekend there was a story from CNN about the Russian ambassador to the United Nations, so lived in New York, and him and Epstein were very chummy and used to have meetings before Vitaly Churkin was his name, before he suddenly died. So like Russian spy suddenly dies, well, you wonder. Anyway, he was providing him with information and also wanted to try and meet with Sergei Lavrov, who's the Russian foreign minister, also was trying to meet with Putin. So just another little tidbit of information for you that may indicate maybe not that he was in fact a Russian spy. Also from overnight, we've got Starmer in more trouble because of his decision to appoint Mandelson as the ambassador to the US. That decision was backed or in fact recommended by his chief of staff, a guy by the name of McSweeney. Now McSweeney overnight has decided to resign over the whole saga because it's just getting too much heat for Starmer. Also, Angela Rayner, who used to be his 2IC, she's now come out saying, yeah, she probably shouldn't have put Mandelson there. I never thought he should be there. Lammy, who's Starmer's former foreign minister, now deputy prime minister, even he has come out and said, yeah, there could have been better people for the job. So how much longer will Starmer hold on to his? That's a question for you today. Also, Lindsey Vonn has crashed out of the Olympic downhill. This was to be the beautiful comeback with one knee replaced, the other on life support. However, 14 seconds in, she hits a gate, she comes off and she's on the ground screaming, airlifted out. It's over, game over for her. Thanks so much for watching, as it is for us this morning. More news throughout the day, nzherald.co.nz. We'll be back tomorrow from 7 o'clock.